I thank the chairman and I thank the panel for its testimony today. And my friend, Mr. Williams, and I disagree on the tax cuts and the benefits to everyday Americans. And the fact that this year we're going to have $896 billion deficit because of those tax cuts that cost us a couple $1 trillion. But I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about tariffs. And I want to talk about the corrupting effect these tariffs have on capitalism. And so, Dr. Bergsten, I was interested in your testimony. I feel like we have an imperial presidency. These tariffs that the president, one day we're going to raise tariffs on China, next day we're going to lower them, next day we're going to raise them. The stock market goes up and down and up and down. And if we can find some insider trading based on that, it's going to be interesting. But you were talking about the fact, this is the National Security Subcommittee, and the president is using national security to raise and lower and jawbone on the tariffs. Talk to me a little bit about how you think the Congress should be involved in establishing any kind of protectionism that these tariffs might introduce into the system.
I think there are at least two things the Congress should do. One is to define national security much more sharply than is the case in current statutes. The phrase national security is used broadly in the Trade Expansion Act. It's used broadly in the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Internationally, it's used very broadly in the World Trade Organization. And it provides a gigantic loophole for anybody who wants to abuse the concept, as I would argue the president is now doing. So, point one.
No, I would say when we challenge Canada and we claim we need to raise tariffs on Canada, one of our best friends, if not our best friend in the world, in the name of national security, is ridiculous. And that's what I'm talking about, an imperial presidency, that there are checks and balances and responsibilities, and this president has run amok in the name of national security. So your second point.
And just to amplify what you say, to think about doing it for autos against NATO allies like Germany and France and the UK and others would be equally ludicrous. But that's also been put on the table and still is out there and could happen. So that's point one. Point two, as I emphasized in my statement, is to require that any future tariff increases be approved by the Congress.
Thank you very much. And I agree with that. And I want to say to Mr. Russell, Mr. Boyd, and to you, you all are free traders. And, let's talk about capitalism. Let's talk about free trade. Let's win because of competition and the ability to be a good farmer, or a good salesman or produce a good product. And so, Ms. Baumann, I want to turn my attention to you. In my district, just outside of Denver, we have a major can company. I have lots of craft breweries. I have Coors Brewing. I have the outdoors industry. So when the president says we're winning on these tariffs, how would you respond to that?
Well, we're definitely not. Those companies that you've mentioned are all facing or are about to face in the Outdoor Industry Association huge increases in their costs. They're becoming less productive, less competitive in producing goods here in the United States because their inputs to production have gone up in price. Consumers and families in your districts are going to start screaming pretty soon if the tariffs go into effect on all those products on List 4, many of which are produced by the Outdoor Industry Association and others. Members of that association. So yeah, we're going to start seeing in the next year or so, if not by this fall, some substantial increases in inflation and reductions. We've already starting to see reductions in manufacturing indexes.
Thank you. So I guess just to conclude my tirade up here, Dr. Bergsten, you wanted to say something.
Just to add, some Americans do win from the tariffs. They do protect some jobs and some firms, but at an enormous price. The steel tariffs save about 12,000 U.S. steel jobs at a cost of almost $1 million per job.
And the aluminum tariffs hurt my district substantially because of the craft brewers and the canning companies that I have. And with that, I yield back to the chair.